In the examination room, the girl twirled the cap of her pen. She replaced the pencil lead with a ballpoint pen refill, then took out an eraser. First, she wrote down the question numbers. As she wrote, she looked up from time to time to observe the invigilator. After making sure there was no danger, she quickly wrote all the answers on the eraser. Once she finished, she swiftly put the eraser case back on. She looked up again and saw that the teacher was still playing with a mobile phone. So, the girl slowly lowered the hand holding the eraser, used one foot to take off the shoe on the other foot, and then put the eraser into the shoe. She turned her head and exchanged a meaningful glance with her best friend. Her best friend understood immediately. Then, with a hard kick, the leather shoe stopped precisely at her best friend's feet. Unfortunately, at that moment, the teacher started patrolling. Xiaolin felt a bit panicked and quickly hid that foot. After seeing the teacher had walked past, her best friend took off her own shoe and was about to kick it to Xiaolin. But unexpectedly, her kicking skills were so poor that the shoe awkwardly stopped in the middle of the aisle. At this critical moment, Xiaolin remained calm. She tidied up the examination papers and put on the shoe with one foot in one smooth motion. Then, looking composed, she walked up to the invigilator. Taking advantage of this opportunity, her best friend quickly took the eraser out of the shoe. The cheating plan was successfully carried out, and Xiaolin became famous overnight. All the rich but academically poor students in the class came to her to customize cheating plans. Although these wealthy students were not good at studying, they had practiced playing the piano since childhood. So, Xiaolin came up with the idea of using piano pieces to transmit answers. Each musical note represented an option. During the exam, Xiaolin would finish the test paper within half an hour and use all the remaining time for cheating. The wealthy students just needed to carefully observe Xiaolin's fingers during the exam to get the correct answers. Xiaolin could also earn a labor fee of 10,000 US dollars. This cheating method seemed to be flawless and was a perfect win-win plan. However, when it came to the actual operation, an accident occurred. Xiaolin suddenly found that there were actually two sets of examination questions this time. All the wealthy but academically poor students panicked immediately. Through gestures, they learned that some people had test paper 1 and some had test paper 2. This was a disaster. But Xiaolin didn't choose to give up on these struggling students. She started writing furiously. In just 20 minutes, she completed all the questions. Then she stretched and made a gesture indicating test paper 1 toward the struggling students. Immediately after, she started moving her fingers to transmit answers to the students with test paper 1. The struggling students stared at Xiaolin's hands intently, afraid of getting even one question wrong. Soon, the students with test paper 1 finally finished the exam. They stood up almost simultaneously and then rushed to hand in their papers. Taking this opportunity, Xiaolin quickly exchanged test papers with the struggling student next to her who had test paper 2. But at this point, there were only 20 minutes left before the end of the exam. All the struggling students with test paper 2 could only sit there anxiously. They felt extremely uncomfortable, as if they had thorns on their backs and every second seemed like a year. In contrast, Xiaolin was answering the questions at lightning speed, not daring to waste a single moment. But when she heard the invigilator say that there were only 10 minutes left, trouble came. Her ballpoint pen refill had just run out. Fortunately, it didn't break. She quickly replaced the refill and continued answering the questions. When she finally completed test paper 2, there were only 5 minutes left. Xiaolin quickly made a gesture indicating test paper 2 to signal the struggling students with test paper 2 to start copying. They were like seasoned spies, with extremely focused eyes and coordinated movements. Unfortunately, the time was too short. Even though Xiaolin's fingers were almost cramping from moving so fast, there were still 6 questions left unanswered when the exam ended. The invigilator demanded that they hand in the papers immediately. But under Xiaolin's leadership, the struggling students still tried their best to finish writing. It wasn't until the teacher was completely enraged and came to collect the papers in person that they had to hand them over obediently. Although the struggling students didn't finish copying all the answers, they had copied enough to get a satisfactory score.